We are live. Testing 1, 2. Just making sure you can see me and hear me okay. So if you are out there, go ahead and throw me a hello. And there we go. Perfect. David is here. So let me know if you can see me, you can hear me okay. And then we'll go ahead and get started, okay? It's Friday. I thought it'd be kind of fun just to talk about this a little bit. I was having a discussion with some students of mine, and we got into this whole scale thing again, which obviously is a hot topic for guitar players. And so I thought, hey, let's talk about this a little bit. I'd go live today, and I would kind of break down some ideas for you on how to kind of approach the scales that you're using and how you could use them in a musical context, right? Hey, Edward. Hey, Brian. Hey, Brad. My chat is over here, so if you see my eyes looking over there that way, that's why. So if for some reason most of these chats are on YouTube, you can always see me on YouTube. You can head over to Facebook to the Steve Stine Guitar channel and chat there as well. Dean is here from Oklahoma City. Eric is here. So glad you're here, Eric Warrington. So let's go ahead and get started. So basically what we're going to do today is I'm going to be playing an E, and what I want to do is just give you some kind of skeletal ideas to start with, and then how we could get a little more creative with those depending on what you're comfortable with. So let's take, for instance, let me show you this. So let's say I was going to do something in E major, right? So a lot of us might think, okay, so I'm going to go to the 12th fret with my pinky on the 12th fret. And I'm going to play E major pentatonic on this side, right? So that might be something that we would go toward. Now, this isn't a mode, diatonic, pentatonic. It's just a creative discussion we're going to have today. But we are going to talk about some of these things. So here's our pentatonic right here. Now, for some people, they might instead decide that a better skeleton of a scale shape to use might be here. Like I do that a lot, where I'll be on the 7th fret of the 5th string here, which is E, and I'll play 7, 9, 6, 9, 6, 9, 7, 9, 7, 9. Now again, you may or may not know all these positions, and it's okay. That's not what this is about. It's about trying to figure out how we can get more creative with the things that we do know, and of course you can expand. And hey, Cody, glad you're here, buddy. And you can expand on these things in a way that works for you. Okay, so let's just start with those two positions to begin with, okay? So we've got E major pentatonic, or maybe this position right here. So the first thing you have to do when you've got a position like that is, of course, when we learn how to play scales, we learn to play them up and down, right? Fundamental, rudimentary practice. But the goal then is to get in there and start figuring out how to make something sound a little more musical. So the things I'm going to show you today, always remember that you can mix and match at any time, okay? When we start learning these things, the most important thing is what we're dealing with today is phrasing and note targeting. Okay, phrasing is so important. Like, phrasing is the way that you talk. When you talk, maybe louder or softer, and then you pause and you say just a few words and then you say more words. Like the length of the discussion that you're having, the length of the sentences is really important, and the notes that you choose is very important. So this isn't going to be about 3-note per string picking or shredding or arpeggiating or sweeping. Those are all great topics, but we just don't have that much time today. Although we will be touching on things that you could use in those ways. So if I've got this pentatonic scale here, what I want to be thinking about is the phrasing. Like, I always think about sliding in, doing something, adding some vibrato. Maybe I know my bending. And this is just straight pentatonic right now. I'm trying not to do anything other than pentatonic. Right? So that's the first place to start, is not just learning the scale, but really trying to figure out how to make that scale sing. Now, it's pentatonic, so it might be missing some things that you want to add in later or whatever, and you can do that. But start with something very skeletal and start trying to figure out how you can take that and make it sound more musical. One way is to add simple ideas like a slide or a hammer-on or a pull-off or a bend or something. Try not to do that yet because we're going to get to those conversations. So that's where we are right now. We've got E major pentatonic. Now let's look over here on E minor pentatonic. So I'm going to go to the 12th fret here, and I'm going to play the same shape I just did, but up here on the 12th fret. So here's minor pentatonic. Now again, the same thing's going to happen over there. I need to learn the shape, memorize it, fundamentally practice it, blah, blah, blah. No doubt about it. But then I want to get in there and start trying to figure out how to phrase, kind of move my motion toward maybe the E, right? If I know where the E is on the guitar. Okay? Just whatever it is you like. Again, slow, fast, it doesn't make any difference. That's not what our topic is going to be, or conversation is going to be about today. So the first thing we're going to do to expand this palette is we're going to turn both of these into blues scales. So if I'm on the minor side, what I'm doing is I'm adding this in. Right there, that note right there, which we're calling a flatted 5, and it's okay if you don't know your theory, but this note would be the 5th, and so this would be the flatted 5. So that note right there adds a bit of a blues context to it, so they call it a blue note or a blues note. Now I can play that note in the higher octave as well. So I'm playing, there it is again, in the higher octave. So what's really nice about that note is it's adding this dissonance to the scale. So the blue note, or the blues note, whatever you want to call it, what you have to remember is that it's not really a note that you want to land on. It's a note that you want to use in conjunction with other notes. It creates this dissonance, this tension, that is then resolved when you go to the note before it or the note after it, okay? Now, the beautiful thing is if you want to use that in the major side, it looks the same. It's right there, in the same spot. The difference, of course, is that my E's, maybe my target note there, are sitting right here. So as I play this scale, so if you wanted to take whatever situation you're in and you wanted your solo to sound maybe a little bit bluesier, a little more colorful, and it doesn't just have to be blues. It's not like you have to play over blues to play a blues scale. You might be playing something country or rock or even jazz, and you want that kind of tonality, you're going to add that in. The big thing here is we've got this world of major and this world of minor, which very soon here we're going to merge these. So it's going to be a little bit longer conversation than I normally do, but hopefully you're going to get something out of this, and you can always come back to this. You know, you can pin it. Certainly subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Share it if you know somebody that might benefit from it, right? So, all right, so the next thing, this is where things are going to start changing a little bit. And I don't want to bury you with theory and that sort of thing, so don't worry if I use terms that you don't know. You can always find out more about those if it's something that you're really interested in. But again, let's keep thinking about the color palette of what we're doing with this scale. So the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to take this just regular pentatonic scale, but what I'm going to do is take one of the notes of the pentatonic and I'm going to change it. So what I'm adding in here is what we call the minor seventh, or the dominant seventh, the bluesy sounding seventh. So I'm taking my traditional pentatonic scale, and I'm not going to play this note, I'm going to play this note instead. And now what it does is it gives a bit larger distance or interval right here, which sounds kind of cool. And of course that's going to happen in the next octave as well. Right there. So what's kind of cool about that is when you add in a note like that, your major pentatonic is still there. The blues scale is still there. You can still use all of those things. Remember, you can mix and match. But for a phrase, for a sound, for a color, you might switch that note instead. Instead of playing, you switch that one note out. And you get that kind of sound. So it might make for really cool little phrases that you're playing. You're doing something major pentatonic. You go add that blues note in. But then you go. Now there's other notes I want to add in. I'm trying to restrain myself right now so I don't get too far ahead of myself. Okay? So, and learning how to do this in other shapes instead of just this one shape, obviously that's important, and you should be able to do these things around the fretboard as you get more comfortable. But in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, if you can learn to do a lot of really cool stuff in one position, it's useful to you. You can use it when you're jamming with people or whatever it might be, and then keep learning how to do it other places. But if you just, if you're always just focused on the whole fretboard, which is important, don't get me wrong, it's hard to develop these ideas, right? If you take something small and you really try and learn to colorize it and use it, then you can always span out, and as you span out, maybe it gets a bit more skeletal because you don't know as much, and that's okay. And then when you have more time, you learn more of another position and more of another position, and you keep kind of building from there. But if you're always just building skeletons, the problem is you're missing all of the color, which is what we're talking about today. Okay, so let's go over to the other side. Let's go to the minor side. Now, in the minor side, we're already playing that note that we were adding over here. So it's not a color note over on this side, but what we are going to do on this side is we're going to add something else. Now again, don't get caught up in the terminology. Don't get lost in this stuff. Just kind of have some fun with this with me. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to add in, now remember, we're minor now. So we've got that kind of darker minor sound. So get that in your head from the major that we were doing. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add in a note we call the ninth. And this is a great note that guys like Satriani or Vi, that sort of thing, Eric Johnson, will use a lot in their playing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the first string here where I'd normally play 12 and 15, and I'm going to add in 14. And when I add in that 14, now what we have is this half step right here between 14 and 15, which makes for a great melody. And this is the octave of that. So that 9, or that 14th fret, that 9th that we're playing right there, I'm calling it, the octave of that is the 11th fret of the 3rd string right there. And that almost has kind of an Yngwie sort of kind of sound to it. So you can see how that note in itself might not be a great blues note, but if you were playing something that was purely minor in nature, that might be a really great note to add in. Again, you have to explore this stuff. I don't want to take too much of your time, so I'm going to hammer through some of these things so you can see how all of this works. And again, you can always come back and watch it later. So another note we're going to add in, today we're going to add in what we call the major sixth. And the reason is because we're kind of in this blues rocky vein right now. So on the second string, I'm also going to add in the 14th fret on the second string. And when I add in that 14, you're going to notice that adds kind of back this bluesy rock sound versus that pure minor sound. Hey Mojo, glad you're here too, bud. You see? So now if I took that major sixth, again, 14th fret of the second string, and added that in over the pentatonic, the minor pentatonic. There's my blues note, right? And there's my 14th fret, the major sixth there. And now all of a sudden I've got this kind of cool, again, blues, Santana-ish. Kind of sound. So what I love to do with this note right here, which isn't so pure like that 14th fret of the first string you could hear was very melodic. This one's cool because you can do this. Laisha says, loved your For the Love of God video. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. See how you can add that in and you get a cool sound? So that's what I'm talking about with phrasing. Is it's not just adding in the note and then just playing all these notes. You can do that, no problem. And there's lots of really cool stuff we can do. But if you can learn... See, like right there, I'm going to the blues note, but you'll notice I did it by sliding. And it sounds pretty cool. So I like to do both of those, the 14 and the 15 on the second string there, as bends. You see, so that's something that you can do. So we've added some stuff. We added that seventh to the major side, and now on this side we added the ninth, which was kind of real melodic, but we've added this major sixth, we call it. And again, don't get caught in the terminology. Just think about what I'm doing. And it adds back in some of this blues flavor, if that makes sense. Okay? So now I want to show you something else that's really cool that you can add in without really understanding why you're doing it or what you're doing. And there's slides. Now, I'm going to go to the major side again, and then I'll go to the minor side. So the major side, let's go back to this again. Just major pentatonic. Now, what I want to show you here is how, even though the notes I might be playing might not fit the scale, any scale, what I'm thinking about is how, what I want to do is just add in this nice single, it's a 1 fret slide that I can do from just about anywhere that adds a little bit of fun and flavor that's almost kind of jazzy. So watch this. So if I take this scale, and any note that I play, I'm going to slide from 1 fret in front of it. See how I slid from this 8th fret to the 9th fret? And that 8th fret isn't a note that exists in the scale, and I'm using it more as what we could maybe call a ghost note or a grace note. I'm just sliding to get a little bit different kind of sound. And I could do that on the second string. Now, some people will go, well, that's the blues note. Yeah, it is, but I'm not really thinking of it like that. I'm thinking of it more like a Steve Lukather kind of... melodic sound. Just an airplane slide, Will. You're absolutely right. That's what I call these, is when you're not sliding with a particular kind of sound, you're just getting this little sound. So you're not doing that. You're just getting this nice little fluff from 8 to 9 here. And you can do it on the other side too. You could be up here. Well, sorry, I don't want to slide back just yet. I want to get ahead of myself. And see, it gives you a really nice sound, and you can do that on the minor side at any point too. If you're over here, let's get that minor sound in our head again. So if we're over here, we can do it on that side at any point in time. In my opinion, I think the major sounds a little bit better that way, but it's entirely up to you. It's whatever works for you. Okay? Cool. So the next thing we're going to do is, this is where things are going to start getting a little bit crazy. So if you watch a lot of modern players, like Guthrie, if you know who he is, or, I mean, there's all kinds of different players like this, you start adding in a lot of chromatics, which brings you into a bit more of a fusion place in your playing. And this takes some time, but I do want to show you this because I think it's really, really cool. So, for instance, Paul Gilbert will often teach, we'll look at the minor pentatonic for now. He'll often teach how you can take a simple thing like the minor pentatonic, and instead of just playing the skeleton of the minor pentatonic, he'll play like this, a very shapy thing where he'll play what we started with, 15, 14, 12, 15, 14, 12, that was our ninth and our major sixth that we talked about. And then 15, 14, 12, which is our blues note right there, which we've also talked about. And you'll notice it's a symmetrical idea right there. And then what he'll do is he'll go to the fourth string and play 14, 13, 12. And then 14, 13, 12. And there's our blues note right there. But what he's doing is he's doing the same idea, these three notes in a row, here. A target note is just going to a note that you want to hit. If you're playing over an E, you want to go to the note E. If you're playing over an A, you want to go to the note A. You got to know where the notes are. Now, you might know more about chords and go to a third or a fifth or something like that. That's another conversation, but that's what a target note is. You're deciding you want to, you're driving around the fretboard and you have a destination. Your destination is the grocery store, right? When you're soloing, if I'm soloing over the note E, that note right there that I'm bending is an E. That's an E. That's an E. So you don't always have to go to the E. It's just I'm instead of not going anywhere, I'm just driving around randomly. I start giving myself a directive. I have somewhere to go for a reason. You see? So anyway, let me get back to this. So now what we've got is we've got this shape that goes 15, 14, 12, and then 14, 13, 12, and then this last string I'm just going to play to keep that kind of bluesy pentatonic sound. So what's really interesting here is you've now added 3 notes per string on all these strings. So if you do like the faster kinds of playing, you can get this 3 note per string kind of speed out of your playing by using this. And there's all kinds of different things you could do with this, but you don't have to do that. You might be just looking at this see? Just finding where you want to go, adding these in. Cliff says he's hungry. Now he's hungry. I'm always hungry. As a matter of fact, pizza is on my agenda for today for lunch. I'm going to treat myself. So if that makes sense, see, all of a sudden you have all of these other notes that you could add in that are not pentatonic, and they're not necessarily coming from any one particular scale. They just sound really, really cool. So that's a way that you can expand on the minor side. Now the major side, there's lots of different things you can do, but I'm going to show you something that I use a lot, and I've seen other players do very similar things. I'm going to go back here. Right there. Okay, so we have, I'm playing major pentatonic, 7, 9, 6, 9, 6, 9, 7, 9, 7, 9. That's what I'm playing right there. But what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to play literally a chromatic in between everything here. Now, I would never just play that. Okay, but those are all the notes that I'm seeing in my head that are available for me to think about phrasing in a particular way. So if I was going, see, I can move around. Now, I don't have to use them all the time. That's the whole point, is I've got that skeleton sitting right there. But at any time, I can drop it and add these notes. Okay? So the other thing I'll do is I've got 7, 8, 9 here. I'll add in the 10s as well. So now it gets even wider. Now it's very major at this point, right? There's not really a minor sound. But if I was to do this, when I get to the end of the phrase, right here, instead of going to this, if I went, see, then I drop back into minor pentatonic at that point. So I could be up here thinking visually skeletally, kind of a strange word, this minor or major pentatonic, but with all these chromatic notes. But instead of going to that note, I go to that note, and all of a sudden it produces this kind of minor sound again. So there's so many different things that you can do, and this is just the tip of the iceberg of things that we could be talking about. The reason why I want to talk to you about this, we're going to just wrap this up so I don't keep you here all day. is that when I was a kid and I was learning scales, and this was long before there was an internet and all of those sorts of things, I understood that you were only allowed to play a certain scale at a time, and that scale had to be right, and you couldn't play notes that weren't part of that scale because it was wrong. Like you don't know what you don't know, right? And growing up in a small town, I didn't have a lot of reference around me of people that were going, no, you could do all kinds of things. I just had whatever anybody was telling me at the time. And certainly not early on, but a little bit later, the guitar magazine started becoming popular. But even they didn't really go into this creative stuff. It was always like, well, here's a song by Rat. Learn that, right? And that's kind of what it was. And so I didn't really learn this until later, okay? That's what you want to be thinking about a little bit, is how to add all of this stuff together, okay? And how it works for you. So take care, stay positive. If you're interested in learning more, you can always head over to GuitarZoom.com. We now have the Guitar Zoom Academy that you can check out. We've got some amazing teachers where you can take one-on-one lessons, all kinds of different things. So take care, stay positive. Hopefully this helped you.